Hello, dear student. How are you? Wish you all are doing good and you are in safe and good conditions. Uh, in this presentation, I will talk about credentials for healthcare providers. And when we talk about healthcare providers, we mean all individuals in healthcare professions like nurses, medicine, physicians, pharmacists, all those we consider them as a healthcare providers. But basically, we will focus on credentials for nurses. And again, if you want to expand your information and to know more about details regarding these credentials, you can review chapter 3 from page 88 to 120. The objective that we are going to achieve together in this presentation, we will discuss the concept of credentialing in healthcare professions, and also we will differentiate between different types of credentials like diploma, certificate, and license, and we will explain the purpose of accreditation and the general process for seeking accreditation. We will discuss also the scope of. Now, as you all know, when we talk about credentials, credential means that it provides information regarding the qualifications and whether the standards have been met. And when we talk about credentials, it might be for organizations or institutions, and it might be for individuals as well. So, if we are talking about credentials for organizations or institutions, it should be awarded by bodies that a set of standards for a specific type of organization. For example, we are talking about hospitals or healthcare settings, or sometimes these organizations could be universities or colleges, like College of Nursing. So all those we consider it as organizations. So it could be the credentials for the organization itself, and so the approval or accreditation from of these bodies will demonstrate to the public that the healthcare organization adheres to the accepted standards. So this is what we mean by credentials for organization. If you are talking about the credentials for individuals, this will communicate to others that the nature of the person's competence, and it provides also an evidence of preparation to perform in a specific capacity and specific competency. So, these credentials for individuals could include certificate, degrees like diploma or a baccalaureate or whatever, and it should be awarded by educational institution. Now, as we mentioned, credentials or these qualifications or let us say certificates should be awarded by bodies or sometimes it might be awarded by organizations. Now, the main idea and the main purpose of these credentials is to protect the public and those who are engaged in a career for example in health occupation like nurses want to be assured that the standard of the practice in their discipline and in the health care organization remain with the high standard and the high quality. So this is an introduction for what do you mean by credentials for healthcare, and as we mentioned, these credentials could be for organizations or individuals. We have several examples for approval and accreditation of institutions and programs. Now, we will list all examples of these accreditations and we will explain each one in specific. So, as example, we have accreditation for educational institutions, and we will talk more about accreditation of educational institutions and a government approval of nursing programs, accreditation of nursing education programs, and accreditation of continuing education programs. So, as you can see here, all types of accreditation are for institutions, and basically they are educational institutions. What about accreditation of educational institution? If you wanted to define the accreditation for educational institutions and accreditation as a whole, it is a process of external quality review that it is created by higher education to scrutinize colleges, universities, and programs for quality assurance and quality improvement. So, if any educational institution or program need to be presented for accreditation, they may voluntarily seek this type of accreditation for both their general education and sometimes it might be for also specialized program. So the accreditation should be, in this term, it should be offered by regional bodies for colleges and universities. And if the institution's program meets standards and developed and published by the regional body, it is awarded by this accreditation or it is awarded the accreditation. So this is an example of the accreditation of educational institution. Now, why do we need educational accreditation? Um, Although it is non-credited institution might award a degree, there are no guarantee that the school meets educational standards. Therefore, the degree might not be accepted as an adequate evidence for qualification. So this is one of the reasons why we look for educational accreditation and only the coursework also that is completed at an accredited institution might be accepted for transfer to another accredited institution. So sometimes you want to be transferred to institution that it is accredited. If you are not coming from another accredited institution, this transfer could not happen. So this is another causes why educational institutions looks for accreditation. Now, for our educational institution, for the College of Nursing at SQU, we are accredited by ASIN, and Dr. Khalid Al Umari will prepare a short video uh, describing the accreditation process that we have passed through and what do you mean by accreditation. Everything regarding the accreditation for the College of Nursing at SQ will be explained for all of you in a short video that will be prepared by Dr. Khalid Al-Amri. The other example of accreditation or for of credentials for institutional or educational institution is the government approval of the nursing program. So in the United States, for example, in any state in the United States, for its graduates of nursing, we are talking about nursing graduate, in order to be eligible to take the NCLEX exam, a nursing program should be approved by the State Board of Nursing or any other designated state governmental department. So it should be approved by the State Board of Nursing or any other governmental parties. And in most states, this called approval, and sometimes it's called accreditation, and this is the most commonly term used with voluntary process as we described before. Now, when a new nursing program is to be initiated, it must be provided by preliminary information to appropriate state government department. Now, the nursing program must be approved prior to admitting students to assure prospective students that they will be eligible to become licensed upon graduation. In order to, uh, for example, to decide whether this graduate is eligible and competent to practice nursing profession, so it should be, as we mentioned, it should be provided with this preliminary information. Now, the nursing program must be approved prior to admitting the student in order to assure all these things. In each state also it has designated a time frame for the renew of this approval for the nursing program. So there is a time frame. For example, this license, for example, will sustain for 2 years. After 2 years, it should be renewed, and it's so on. So also there are representative of the state approval authority. They have to visit the nursing program or the program as a whole in order to decide whether this program is accredited or not. Now, the American Association of Nursing of Nurse Anesthetists, for example, provide a specialized accreditation for institutions and offering what we call advanced practice nurse practitioner or nurse practitioner programs. So this is a kind of credentials or approval that provided for subspecialties in nursing program. Now, how this evaluation process or how this credentials provided by those parties, there will be a peer evaluators from accrediting organization. Those will visit the nursing program and they will do a self review study, and they provide an independent evaluation. Now, their visits sometimes include meetings with officials throughout the institution, faculty, and students, as well as they review different types of records and documents, and then they will write a report and they will put recommendation of the visit for the visiting evaluators, and they submit this report to the panel and the organizational uh, who's composed of other peer educator. After that, they will either to be granted for accreditation, so either they will be granted accreditation or granted accreditation with modifications, or sometimes they will be denied for accreditation if they are not meeting the standards that they are looking for. So this is an example of how approval and accreditation provided for a specific nursing program. Now, also we have what we call accreditation also for educational, for nursing educational program, another type. And here we can see that the National League of Nursing assumed the responsibility for accrediting these nursing education programs. Now, the National League of Nursing accrediting college accredits nursing programs at all levels. So they can give accreditation for practical nurses, for hospital diploma nursing education, associate degree nursing education, baccalaureate and higher degree education like master and doctoral programs. Now, another also institutions, nursing organization or institution, which is the Council on Collegiate Nursing Education, also began to offer accreditation for baccalaureate and higher degree nursing programs like master and doctoral programs. So accreditation in this case is based on systematic study as we mentioned before, and evaluation by nursing program itself that focus on standards and specific standards and criteria for the accreditation, whether this educational program meet this criteria or standards or not. Now, we have also another example of accreditation, like accreditations for continuing education programs. Now, what about this? It's assured that the nurse consumer that the specific continuing education program offering meets that it is appropriate to the preset standards. And we have many of the states that require this continuing education for renewing a nursing license, for example, and they require that the offering to be approved or accredited from some official groups or organizations. This will ensure that the continuing education is up to level, up to high quality, and will be also meaningful for any nurse who are going to take this educational program. Now, we finished in previous accreditations or credentials for, let us say, in organizations or institutions. Now we are going to talk about credentials for individuals. And when we say individuals, here we mean nurses because those our candidates or those our focus. So, what are the types of credentials that should be provided or that could be provided for nurses? First, we can give credentials like diploma, degrees, certificate of completion of something. So all these are types of credentials. Now, for example, it might be provide, for example, some of the credentials like providing licensed practical nursing programs offer a certificate of completion, and hospital-based program prepare registered nurses like RNs, and they offer a diploma degree, while the college-based nursing programs, or for example, offer academic degrees such as the associate degree, or the baccalaureate and the master's degree. So all these are types of credentials that provided for individuals. Now, uh, all those types of credentials, they require the fulfillment of certain general educational courses and coursework that are specific to a particular career, such as, because we are talking here about nurses, so this career is like nursing. Now, the value of the diploma as a degree is related to the quality of that educational institution or the program that provide this degree, as well as to the actual title of the certificate or the degree also that is provided. Now, here we want to talk about the nursing licensure in the United States. And before we start talking about nursing licensure in the US, we need to know that nursing leaders historically have maintained an ethical positions that accountability to be public for quality nursing care is essential. And the public, however, often has no method for evaluating the competence of each individual nurse. Therefore, the nursing profession has tried to ensure that nurses have credentials and they are recognized, and they should be also recognized by everyone. Now, the legal licensure provides standards mechanism for judging the competency and therefore protect the safety of the public. So basically, the licensure in the US to provide evidence about the high quality of those individuals, meaning those nurses, and as well as to provide and to protect the safety of the public. And when we talk about the public, we include all patients who are in hospitals, out hospitals, and etc. So, in order to set all these things, a set of laws regulating the practice of nursing is termed as a Nurse Practice Act. So, um, these laws and rules and regulations, as we mentioned, specify the specific nursing acts and Nurse Practice Act that all nurses should fulfill in order to do or to practice nursing with high competency. Now, as a type of licensure, we have what we call the permissive licensure, which is a voluntary system whereby the individual could choose to become a to become licensed to provide evidence of their competencies, but a license was not required to practice. So this is, we call it permissive. So the nurse choose to have this kind of licensure. Now, the requirement for permissive licensure included graduating from a school that satisfied with certain standards and certain criteria that establish the Practice Act for that state and passing a comprehensive examination like the NCLEX RN, or for example for the practical nurse, the NCLEX PN. So this is what we call the permissive licensure, which is, as we mentioned, it is not mandatory. It is choose by the nurse to do it or to apply for it or not. Now, the other type of nursing licensure, which is the mandatory nursing licensure, and this type of nursing licensure, as you can see, um, it requires that all persons who wish to practice nursing meet the established standard for the education and pass standardized examinations and secure the license to practice. Now, the standardized examination that we talked about is the NCLEX RN for registered nurses or for baccalaureate degree. Now, any amendment to a pill may change the content dramatically and cause an original supporters of the bill to reconsider this support again. Once the appropriate legislative body passes a bill, it's become that enacted or statutory law. Now, mandatory licensure nowadays is the standard in the United States and Canada and most other countries. Also, they also follow the mandatory licensure, and therefore, if you wish, for example, to work as a nurse in any state or in any province or any country, you must obtain the licensure that is valid and is that jurisdictions before you start working at this state or this country. So as we mentioned, it's become a mandatory. That's why we call it mandatory. So it's obligates all nurses to take this licensure in order to practice their nursing profession. In this slide, we'll describe what we call Code of Professional Conducts. What do you mean by Code of Professional Conduct? The Code of Professional Conduct informs the professionals of the standards of professional conduct required of them in the exercise of their professional accountability and practice. So, for example, we are talking about nurses. So, it inform all nurses about the standards of care that should be provided by and practiced by any nurse, and if the patient, if the nurse is fulfilling this, for example, standards, this will put them under the accountability, the professional accountability and the practice. It also informs the public and other professionals, for example, like physicians, pharmacists, whatever, and employees of the standard of professional conduct that they can expect of a registered practitioner. So this is like contract between the professional, for example, and the public and other professionals in order to know what are the set of standards and what are the minimal requirements that each one of those professionals should adhere to in order to be professionally accountable about their practice and about what they are doing. Now, as a registered nurse or as a midwife, you have, in order to be accountable about your practice and in order to consider you as a professional, that you hold a set of the standards and minimal standards of professional conduct, you must protect and support the health of the individual patients and the client. This is the first thing that you need to do as a registered nurse or as a midwife. And the other thing is to protect and promote the health of the wider community. When we are talking about wider community, we are talking about outside hospitals, and to act in such a way that justifies the trust and confidence, confidence with the public that you have these standards and this level of standards. Also, to uphold and enhance the good reputation of the profession. You save the reputation of the profession. And finally, to protect and enhance any harm that might affect own professional performance. So all those things you have to adhere to as a registered nurse or as a midwife in order to consider you that you are fulfilling the professional conduct. Now, in order to get a license to practice the profession of nursing and midwifery, uh, who can request this service? Now, let us talk about what we have here in Oman. All Omani nurses and non-Omani from inside out or outside the Sultanate and health institutions in the private sector can seek and can request for this licensure. Now, what is the process in order to ask or to request the service? You have to submit applications to the Ministry of Health, to the Director of the Office of Public Hospital in the Ministry. This is the first step. Then you need to submit applications to serve the private sector to the Director of the Public Service Rest private health institutions. Then you need to also to provide a copy of the biography and to submit the copies of diplomas and certificate of experience that you have get that you have from your educational institution, and to audit certification and inspection of the health institution to determine if the applicant services are necessary to serve in the private sector or not, and again grant the applicant a visa to visit the sultanate in order to perform the test. Then to complete a mobilized application form to enter the license test entry with the licensing test, and to pass a written and oral test that is conducted by the committee on the office of the ministry for a candidate who chosen from those who passed the certification process, and after that the license will be granted and the labor card will be issued for this applicant. Now, in order to know more about details, you can visit this website and know more information about how to get a practice, or how to get a license in order to practice the profession of nursing and living here in Oman. Um, Credentialing in Oman, when we are talking about credentialing in Oman or at Oman, in Oman, credentialing for educational institution is performed by Oman Academic Accreditation Authority, which is the OAAA, Oman Academic Accreditation Authority. This is the usual credentialing institutions. Now, the Oman Academic Accreditation Authority is charged with assisting in the development of higher education sector in Oman throughout institutional quality audits and institutional and program accreditation processes. So this is the main purpose of this credentialing organization or institution. Secondly, in collaboration with the Ministry of Higher Education, it has the responsibility also to establish academic standards and to provide training and networking opportunities for those professionals. So here in Oman, we can apply, as we mentioned, if you want to have credential from Oman for educational institution, it should be provided by the Oman Academic Accreditation Authority. Now, credentialing for healthcare institutions like hospitals in Oman is performed by the Ministry of Health in collaboration with other international bodies, and we will give you example for those international bodies. So basically, Ministry of Health and collaboration with other international bodies. Now, example of these international bodies: the Joint Commission, U.S.-based non-profit organization that accredit U.S. healthcare organizations and program, and the international branch credits medical services from around the world. So it can give accreditation also for healthcare institutions outside the U.S. Now, also accreditation Canada International, ACI, which is the international arm of accreditation in Canada. It is a not-for-profit and it is independent organization. The Accreditation Canada International's accreditation program, known as Momentum International, and it evaluates medical facilities for clinical care, for administration, and for the infrastructure across the world. So this is two types, or these are two types for international bodies can give credentials for healthcare institutions here in Oman. Another credentialing bodies also at Oman are the Oman Medical Specialty Board. So, what is the mission and what is the purpose of having Oman Medical Specialty Board? Now, the Oman Medical Specialty Board, which is the OMSP, leverages the data flow group's specialized primary source verification (PSV) solution in order to screen the credentials of the healthcare professionals like nurses, physicians, whatever, who are practicing their professions in the Sultanate of Oman. So this is the first, let us say, the first mission or the first job of the OMSP. Now, also the mission of the OMSP is to maintain and improve the quality of the medical care throughout the Sultanate of Oman by developing and maintaining postgraduate medical specialty education and setting the professional and educational standards for the training and the certification of medical and other healthcare practitioners. So basically, those are the roles of the OMSP in order to maintain the quality of the medical care throughout the system. Here in this slide, you can see different types of credentials. For example, we have what we call Oman Prometric exam for doctors. We have also Oman Prometric exam for pharmacists. And we have also other Prometric exams. We will discuss them in next slide. These, as you can see here, the Prometric exam for doctors and for pharmacists, those are like credentials for individuals. And we have also another type of credentials for institutions. As you can see here, we have uh, for the first time in hospital in Oman, we have it was awarded with a prestigious international accreditation and by the Joint Commission International, and it was Muscat Private Hospital. This is kind of credential for organization. We also have here another certificate of accreditation from Canada for the Royal Hospital, and we have also what we call the Star Care Oman, also another certificate of accreditation or credential that is provided by another agency. And also we have the in مستشفى جامعة الملك عبد العزيز. This is I think in King KSA. Also, this is a kind of accreditation for organization, health organizations or healthcare setting like hospital. So all those are like credentials either for organizations or for individuals. In this slide, you can see that we have another credentials for individuals like Oman Prometric exam for pharmacists, Oman Prometric exam for physiotherapists, we have Oman Prometric exam for radiographers, we have also for lab technicians. Now, what is important for us is the Oman Prometric exam for nurses. So this is one of the credentials that can be provided for Omani nurses who want to take this accreditation or this credential by applying this Prometric exam here in Oman. And we have also the Oman Prometric exam for dentists. So all those are kind of credentials for individuals. What about College of Nursing in Sultan Qaboos University? Now, in previous slide, we mentioned that for educational institution to be accredited in Oman here, there is what we call the Oman Academic Accreditation Authority, and this is at the national level. So, if any academic institution want to be accredited from this institution, this will provide with a national accreditation certificate. But your college of nursing here in SQU, and be proud all of you because you will be graduated inshallah from a school of nursing or from college of nursing that is accredited internationally by the ASN. So ASN, which is the Accreditation Commission for Education in Nursing, has granted the SQU College of Nursing Baccalaureate program the initial accreditation status. And your college was the pioneer, and it was the first college the Arab world and in the Middle East also, which gets the ASN accreditation. So this is a kind of honor for all of you that you will be graduated from a highly let us say high quality and accredited institution, educational institution. As I mentioned before, Dr. Khalid Al-Umari will prepare us a short video about the ASN accreditation for the College of Nursing in Sultan Qaboos University. Thank you.